Hounds, I've been relegated to the spare room to talk to you about the Halloween franchise, which seems fair enough. The franchise itself should have been sent to its room with no supper a long time ago. I've just finished watching my 12th Amityville movie, and you're going to have to forgive me. I'm not going to watch Amityville Death House. It's only available on DVD in Region 1, America and Canada. It's ridiculously priced on Amazon for what I know it's going to be. All I can tell you is that I can assume that since it's at least since it's got Eric Roberts in it, it's not going to be ranked the worst Amityville movie. I thought that movie was locked in already until the film I just saw, and I think I'm going through some sort of Stockholm syndrome with number 12 spot, which is the Amityville Playhouse, a film that not only didn't seem to end, it kind of didn't seem to begin either. These Amityville movies roughly fall into sort of three distinct categories: the theatrically released movies, the made-for-TV movies in the 90s that still bear some tenuous connections to the people involved with the franchise, and then the sort of video-on-demand, straight to DVD stuff that is using Amityville as a tag. The worst offender of the lot is Amityville Playhouse. It is simply, I don't want to waste too much time talking about it. There's the acting is atrocious. I mean atrocious across the board. Atrocious. I can't even parody it because I swear to you I won't be able to reach it. In parody I will be making it seem better than it was. It's some kids gets a girl whose parents died inherits a playhouse, a theatre, and then she decides that her and some of her friends are going to go and explore it, and it's one of the ones, because there's more than one, that was shot in outside of America. This one's shot in Canada, so there's a lot of Canadian accents aping American accents, and it was also shot partly in England, and so there's lots of mid-Atlantic going on. It keeps jumping to the teacher, who's also the director, who's investigating the history of the town. Complete cinematic non sequiturs. It's insane. Weirdly, on the outside of the closed theatre, there is a poster for a band called Skull Crusher, which is the most bizarre callback I think I've ever seen in films ever, because it's a callback to a Skull Crusher t-shirt that the Sun is wearing in, I believe, Amityville It's About Time, one of the 90s movies. Do not watch this film. At number 11, the film that I thought was completely locked in for the worst Amityville film ever, and just squeaks in at number 11 now, is the Amityville Haunting. If I have to talk about this movie, it's one of those Asylum movies, so it's almost like a mock. It's one of their mock films, almost. The opening little sting is quite good, where they've spent a little money on some computer generated stuff to make it seem like some kids are outside the Amityville house. If you're going to try and really lock into the Amityville mythos, don't have your film filmed inside of a tiny house, when we know the Amityville house is 3 stories and your film is 2 stories, and that you can walk from the front to the back of it in the space of 10 seconds or less. Don't do that. They've gone after, it's a found footage movie. They've gone after the Paranormal Activity crowd, and that could have been something really interesting. A Paranormal Activity style movie, really keying in to the Amityville mythos as its foundations, but the only thing I can think about that attempt is it makes me think of Robert De Niro talking to Sylvester Stallone in Copland, if you've ever seen Copland. And all I can think over and over and over again is you wanted to make a paranormal activity style movie using the Amityville mythos, and you blew it! You blew it! Don't watch it. At number 10, it's the Amityville Asylum. Again, it's another low budget movie using Amityville as a hook to hang the film on. This one was filmed in 11 days for £6,000. So it's the 6,000 British pounds. So I'm kind of judging it on those merits. It comes with all of the things you would expect a film that cost £6,000 and was shot in 11 days to come with. So we can sort of skip past all of those shortcomings. At the very least, I think you can probably guess what all of those are. The annoying thing is that this one has got a little kernel of something in it. I mean, the asylum's built on supposedly in this one built on the old grounds of where the house was. So you're going to have to ignore all kinds of questions you have about zoning laws there. But one of the patients is obviously supposed to be Ronnie DeFeo, and it does link back into those murders, but sort of suggests that the 6 people murdered in real life back then were part of a satanic ritual that needs 6 sacrifices that's coming around again. It kind of does for the Amityville mythos what the Curse of Michael Myers did for the Halloween myth, and introduced the cult of Thorn and all of that kind of stuff, and made Michael the sort of puppet of this cult. It does a weird sort of thing with Ronnie DeFeo in that way. So that'll give you a kind of idea of where that one's going. It's probably not worth your time, if I'm being entirely honest. Well, it's not worth your time. Frustratingly, there's an interesting idea there. It's just an idea that could have been explored with more time and more money, a lot better. I mean, asylums are always going to be creepy. So, number 9, the Amityville Curse. This is the first of the films that sort of decided to use the Amityville thing as a hook and move completely away from the house. This is a different house. The idea is that the whole of Amityville has got weird shit going on. But for the longest time, I thought that, you know what, this is going to be a really interesting little murder mystery. There's a priest murder at the start, which has flavours of Exorcist 3 to it, and then these people buy this house. They all group together to invest in the house and do it up and sell it on for a profit. But one of them is the killer or linked to the killer, and it had my interest for a while until who you think's the killer is the killer, and I don't need to be more circumspect than that. Everyone watching this movie will think, oh, that's the killer, so it's obviously not going to be that person because it's too obvious. And you watch it expecting some kind of twist that never comes. The person you think it is the person that it is. But it's got a creepy nightmare sequence, and at the end, the killer, all disfigured, moving through the house with the shotgun, with nice echoes of the DeFeo part of the myth. I guess it is now. I mean, I'm gonna have to stop saying how uncomfortable I feel with that these real life murders are being used for entertainment, because it's practically in all of them. So we just take that as read. Number 8. I might be being a little bit harsh on number 8, but I've stuck Amityville 3 in at number 8 for reasons why. I've done a fuller video, a standalone video on Amityville 3, Amityville 3D. It's laughable. So for reasons why, seek out the video. I'll link it below, I guess. Number 7. And I'm already reconsidering and thinking this maybe should have been higher. But my personal bias for the types of horror movies I like is definitely on show here. But for number 7, I've stuck the remake in, the 2005 remake of the original film. This was back when a long time when Hollywood was trying to work out what to do with Ryan Reynolds. He obviously has charisma. He obviously has star quality. And post Van Wilder, no one could find what to do with him. Now Deadpool's come along, and it turns out just let him do his shtick. But horror movies, no. Although I've just read the voice in my head's gone. Hang on a minute. What about Buried? Yes, Ryan Reynolds is fucking amazing in Buried. Buried, the film where he's buried alive, and the entire film takes place in his makeshift coffin as he's buried alive. Is one of the most intense and uncomfortable films I've ever seen. So I've always championed Reynolds. I've actually always really liked him. It's just that Hollywood hasn't known what to do with him. Now he's got Deadpool, we can all rest easy. But he's not a good fit for this. It's all over the place. It's got all its insidious and conjuring jump scares, but everything else thrown into the mix. It's got ghosties, ghoulies. The main problem is in the original film, George Lutz and the rest of the family are all under attack, and they pull together to sort of survive their attacks. This one goes very much down the Shining route, and George is under attack, and the house is trying to turn him to kill his family. And it reminds me of what came later with the Platinum Dunes remakes and stuff. Slick, glossy, but no real depth to them. This is the sort of harbinger of that kind of stuff, to my mind. Number 6. Now we're moving into the realms of the 90s stuff, which I would sort of classify under a banner of dumb but fun. And I was expecting to have to wade through these. It was not. It was the Playhouse, Asylum, Haunting. Those are genuine slogs. These are fun, dumb fun. This is a whole slew of movies, sort of inspired by the John G. Jones book, The Evil Escapes. Now, Jay Anson wrote the Amityville Horror, but then John G. Jones took over duties and happily carried on the Lutz's tale to try and get the Lutz's more money with Amityville Horror Part 2 and Part 3, the novels. And then he wrote Amityville, The Evil Escapes. It just completely does away with the whole pretense that any of this was ever true, and it's a collection of short stories following items from the Lutz's yard sale where they sell off their stuff, and it's the little cursed item, mini umbrella sat in the middle of the franchise that turns out to be a hell of a lot of fun. Most of these I won't be able to hold up individual discs because they're all contained in this Spanish box set. That was the only way I could get most of them, and I am glad I did. The Evil Escapes, which is the first of them. It was the made-for-TV movie. I think it was sort of John G. Jones, by the way, produces these. I think it was their way of testing the water to see if the franchise had legs outside of the house. This is the lamp one. This is the one with the cursed lamp. Yeah, I know. That gets bought and shipped to California, and then it basically, the lamp kind of takes over the electrical items in the house. So it's a sort of haunted house maximum overdrive. I know, right? It introduces the idea that there's a body count in these movies. So we're moving very easily into made-for-TV territory and the much more comfortable tropes of horror movies with body counts and strange and unusual deaths that we need to thank really The Omen for kicking all of that off. And it's fun, it's goofy. A lamp isn't scary. They do well a little. They do better later on. But the lamp's goofy. You'll look at it and go, "Who bought that? It's obviously haunted. It's an evil-looking lamp. Not only would no one buy it, no one would design it and then manufacture it with a view to selling it, because they would instinctively know that no one would buy it. No one would buy it. So it's fun. The lamp possesses a cat at the very end. There's a demon cat, freeze frame, red eyes on the cat. It's goofy. After that comes Next up, not after that, on the scale of goodness, is Amityville Dollhouse. So this is the tail end of the possessedy stuff. We've moved beyond actual items to now a house is being built on the foundations of the old house which burnt down. But there happens to be a dollhouse recreation of 112 Ocean Avenue that causes all of the shenanigans. And it's goofy and it's fun. The dollhouse, and I'm being completely serious, is absolutely amazing. I want it. I covet it so badly. Me, a 41-year-old man, now desperately wants a dollhouse. That Amityville dollhouse is amazing. There is some bizarro stuff in it. There's a scene where a mouse gets into the dollhouse. It's in the girl's bedroom, and it runs up the stairs, and under the bed that's in her room in the doll's house, and then all of a sudden under her bed there's an enormous giant evil rat. One of the kids it's two families coming together, a step family if you like, a widowed husband and wife getting married. So the son of the widow of the wife keeps seeing his dad, who died, I guess, in Vietnam or somewhere like that, because he's come back as a zombie in fatigues. There's a kind of a vibe of Sean Cunningham's House to this one. So practical effects, pretty goofy, but fun to get along with. So there's a house vibe to this more than an Amityville vibe, but you know, something I can get on board with, and you can have a lot more fun with this than you can have with some of the previous films that I've mentioned. In the number 4 spot then is, back to the box set, Amityville: A New Generation. This one is the mirror one. It's a cursed mirror, and the people look in it and see the way that the mirror is going to kill them. And this one's got a real Tales from the Dark Side vibe to it, I'll be honest with you. There's a building of sort of loft apartment type things with sort of hip young artists, and one of them gets given this mirror by a homeless guy who then dies. There's a weird connection between him and the homeless guy that I won't spoil, but there's a roster of people you'll have seen from other horror movies in it to just spice it up. David Norton's in it from American Werewolf in London. He's the landlord. Terry O'Quinn, obviously of Lost and Alias, but the stepfather as well is the policeman. Robert Ressler, I've completely mispronounced his name. Grady, anyway, from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and he of Vamp is in it. Lynn Shay from the Insidious movies has an amazing turn in it as a nurse at an asylum. She's absolutely spectacular. She just cameos in it, and she gives such a wonky, off-kilter, gleeful performance. It's superb. There are some fun kills. There's some fun stuff going on, and it's all 90s sort of made for TV goodness. One up on that at the number 3 spot is the Clock one, Amityville: It's About Time. That every time I read the title of that, for some reason I hear it in an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice. I can't help it. Amityville: It's About Time. This is the Clock one. There's the clock from the house sort of starts fucking with the family and fucking with time and pausing time and fast forwarding it for some, turning them really old, rewinding it, making them young and stuff like that. Kind of a weird, bizarrely, this has got a vibe of some of the later direct-to-video Hellraiser sequels. It's directed by, I've forgotten to write his name down, the guy that directed Hellbound, and it's scored by the guy who wrote the score for Bloodlines. So it's maybe not surprising that there's a sort of direct-to-DVD Hellraiser-y type feel to this one. It's got some great practical effects in it. There's a guy that melts. There's a brutal dog attack, probably one of the most brutal dog attacks I've seen in something like this. Good gooey special effects and oozing pussy wounds and stuff like that. And what John G. Jones, who produced this in The Evil Escapes, he wanted to sort of introduce a body count. Now in this one, we've introduced boobs for the first time to the Amityville franchise. There are more boobs in the previous movie, which was a new generation. But yes, your first boobs. No, what the hell am I talking about? There are boobs in Amityville 2. I just blocked it because they're incest boobs. Talking absolute nonsense. The number 2 spot is the original 1979 Amityville Horror, which means that the number 1 spot, of course, goes to Amityville 2, The Possession. If you want to know why, if you want to hear my fuller thoughts on the number 2 and 1 spot, the 2 best movies in the Amityville franchise, I have, again, already done individual videos about those, which I will link to. Maybe I've been a little harsh on 3D. Maybe I've been a little harsh on the remake. But apart from sort of rejigging the quality order of the middle ones, the ones about the objects, this really is a case of a franchise of diminishing returns. And the higher the sequel number gets, the lower the quality gets. So yeah, I've watched them all now, mainly so you don't have to. You can thank me in the comments below.